Leftovers. Um, Part two of my update on the true state of the human condition by the original and still uncontested Doctor of Humanics. Now, I talked about protests, even though there's maybe more, and even when the violence doesn't come from protesters, but it comes from authority figures who not only violate their rights that wouldn't like it to be done to them, and sometimes use that argument in other ways when they want to do things, is there also violence on the authority side. And that includes the countries, the democratic countries that criticize others that say they follow the rule of law, right? I should keep doing this for the rest of the video just to show how nonsensical you are to me. But the fact also that some of these protests relate to abortion rights. Now here's a point I'm going to make where you're going to prove me right again. Do you know how many more species than yours, the people primates that I share DNA with as the elusive Homo sapien, you're the Homo communio, we pretty much start with the same DNA? Do you know how many more species than us actually do a smarter planned parenthood, especially as based to their ecosystem's resources at the time? Do you know how much more advanced many species are than us in this basic way to evaluate sentience and sapience? Now, they might not do it because they're having big meetings with their councils or whatever, but we shouldn't need that either, because we have the same parts of our land mammal brains that shows that we should be capable to just unconsciously know this without even having meetings about it. But your protests are for your rights to have abortions or to control somebody else's right to have an abortion or not. Now, this is not at all related to ecocentrism, like the other intelligence and species other than us that succeed at Planned Parenthood. But the fact, again, that so many pregnancies happen by accident or neglect or incompetence or dishonesty or just a lack of the ability to access the higher functions of their brains is pretty sad. Now, again, I'm talking about a species. So some of you would say, how dare you, that person didn't ask to be raped or whatever, as if I'm talking about a person, and as if people being raped are the majority of people that need the abortion. By the way, it's probably higher than you realize if you include all the cultures of the world, but it's not the only argument for abortion, right? And if you showed signs of having a connection to the natural world, to the reality that you live in, and that you could, in your decisions, understand we're the species responsible for the Anthropocene. Yeah, there should be, like I said before, one child born per 6 persons for at least 75 years to come, at least. And these 6 kids should receive training specific to what they're going to live through. When you ask specialists that aren't in denial about what they're going to live through. No signs of this at all. So again, let me repeat to you, it's nice to see protests and you think you're defending human rights, but you're so far gone in your thinking that you have no clue that what you're doing is so far from reality of human rights. Because is your human right to be an incompetent, immature adult? Because as a majority, this is happening way too much. And you should also know that's a medical condition. Ask yourselves, why is there possibly more medical issues than before? And it's because, again, you live in a way that is toxic in your disconnection with the natural world. So I don't see these conversations as being dominant in both the collective consciousness and the collective unconscious. And, and I, again, just watching Democracy Now!, which is, I would say, very largely accurate international news when they do the international news, but you also study by what they cover or don't cover with what's happening. Or sometimes you'll know this is happening, but somehow it never becomes a story. And that's a denial, right? That's an avoidance. That's an inability to grasp the reality of our own species. So again, I'm telling you, if you guys were on your way out and you could, decommission your nuclear power plants and somehow detoxify things, which is not really possible because you've just brought too much of your poisons on this living globe of a paradise. And if any of you want to actually agree with reality about what you did to the paradise on this planet, you will realize, yeah, there's nobody that I know that is going to a heaven when our lifestyles, whether we were some of the worst or some of the best at it, but we didn't have the conversations about it, some of our lifestyles are meant to destroy heavens. So who's going to heaven if it ever existed? So if there is a God, maybe, the first thing that this God did was to build the infrastructure for hell, because so far there was no sign that anybody deserved this heaven. So that, that's undeveloped real estate right there. I don't know anybody from history that I've heard about or that I've met that would be going there. In a wonderful place of reward for an eternity, man, you would have had to sacrifice your entire life to oppose a species. Okay, I'm talking about myself, but I don't believe in heaven. You would have to go against your own species. That is pretty much hell creators. Again, these are just terms you use. I don't believe this stuff. These terms of hell and heaven. I believe our brain is programmed because of the way that life on Earth evolved. It's programmed to self-assess in a fraction of a second as we die in a fairly natural way, not a bullet in the head, but the brain is programmed to self-evaluate, and it knows this on the journey of life. And we get what we deserve in the fraction of a second that feels like an eternity when this self-assessment happens. And this is one of the coping mechanisms to keep life forms that are on the right track to staying connected with the evolution of our biosphere would do. Their brains would do this. That's why dogs are naturally, unless they've been corrupted by people, are naturally decent, canines. And again, the concept of a dog is created by people. And you could see the personalities and cultures of the people primates in these dogs. Not so much cats, but more dogs. So I'm learning a lot about my cat, and I'm learning a lot that my cat's brain functions in a particular way, and it's been doing this for about 50 million years, in relation to attention span of priorities and how these priorities shift. There are basic needs. Let's say food, sleep, reproduction, play, like hunting type things. But these keep moving up and down the priority list. It keeps shifting, and you have to follow the cat's life to know, oh, that's why it's not about me, and if you like me right now, or if you're a good life partner by spending time with me right now, it's related to what's a priority for this cat in relation to this. And you can't control all these things. If you do, you're really not going to get a cat. You're going to get a domesticate that's pretty screwed up, and when they're screwed up, it affects everything, including their health. So in about 5 years or 6 years, if a veterinarian sees my cat, that's a healthy cat, they might assume it's only related to, healthy foods, or, a combination of, exercise or play or whatever. They're not going to realize this cat has been allowed to be a cat. So unless there was an accident or genetic defect, this cat is healthy looking at this age because I did not try to domesticate the cat to be something other than a cat. And yet all you guys have been doing since I was a kid and realizing various forms of these domestications, these human domestication syndromes have been happening for thousands of years. Some are more recent, or they are passed on in memetics through more recent technological advancements. And when I say advancements, I don't mean better. I don't mean better in the sense of better. I mean, upgraded, let's say. Upgraded poisons, like the internet, will speed up the passing on of certain memetics. And that's not the same as what you define as memes. But memetics are behaviors, patterns, beliefs, cultural norms, thinking patterns, like making assumptions. This has grown so much because of the internet. And making assumptions becoming such a common and widespread and almost the entire tool of many people, primates that I meet, who have an attention span far below that of a cat. It's, you don't come back from that with a meeting at the United Nations. Like, this is not fixed within hundreds of years. It takes much longer. We've devolved this. But again, to fix this, you'd have to have the conversations with somebody like me. And our species can't. And, there's no global brain that's been interacting with me. There's no extraterrestrials or other advanced entities that people might call gods, but sometimes they're just more technologically advanced. Coming from outer space or anywhere else you might think, other dimensions or whatever, which sounds immature. So there's nothing like that. So I have to go with the evidence, and the evidence is that things aren't going to get better. So when it comes to a conversation about abortion, is like, you guys are totally missing the point of what the protest should be about. It should be about reducing our numbers in a humane way, not in ways like what's happening in Gaza.